Hi, my name is John from Japanese Knife Imports, and today we're going to have a discussion about the use of sharpening steels and honing rods with Japanese knives. A lot of newcomers to Japanese knives will hear from other people that the use of honing steels or sharpening steels with your Japanese knives is just strictly forbidden. It's not okay to use. But no one will ever take the time to explain why. And so in this video today, that's my goal, to explain to you why the sharpening steels don't work well with Japanese knives. So first and foremost, it's important to understand how a sharpening steel functions and what its purpose really is. A lot of the sharpening steels, there's some that have abrasive in them, but for the most part they're there to not be abrasive, but to realign an edge that's come out of alignment. So as you use your knife over time, it's hitting a lot of things. It's hitting your cutting board and food and seeds and whatever else it comes across. And the knife comes out of alignment a little bit. Now, this isn't always true, and it's true mostly for softer steel knives. So it's something you see with German and French and Swiss knives a little bit more, is because the steel is a lot softer, they actually come out of alignment when you hit hard items. They deform. And by using a sharpening steel, you can bend them back into place, realign the edge so that you get a nice sharp edge that will actually cut things again. However, the reason that people switch to Japanese knives is because they tend to be thinner and harder overall, which gives you better cutting performance, less wedging and whatnot, and also better edge retention. The downside is that they end up being a little bit more brittle. And so you see Japanese knives range from about 58 on the Rockwell hardness scale to some steels will go up to like 67, 68 on the Rockwell hardness scale. And these are extremely hard steels. Most of them fit between that 58 and like 64 range of things. But they're extremely hard steels relative to their German and Swiss and French counterparts. And so what happens with the Japanese knives is when they hit something hard, instead of deforming or coming out of alignment, little pieces just kind of chip off and you see a micro-chipped edge, or sometimes you see larger chips. And so when you go to the honing steel to try and realign this as you're trying to bend things back into place, oftentimes what will happen is more pieces will break off because it doesn't have the same kind of malleable nature or flexible nature that the softer steel has. And so you end up with a more microchipped or even larger chips on your edge, which doesn't necessarily promote good cutting, although some people like a serrated edge, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for nice, smooth cutting action, causing as little damage to our food as possible. So I explain to people, especially for harder steel knives and thinner knives, you want to avoid the honing steel, and instead of using a honing steel to touch up your edge, you can use methods like stropping, or my preferred method is to have a finishing stone nearby that you can touch up your knife. And if you're diligent about touching up your knife anytime that it's not feeling quite sharp, it doesn't really take that much effort to maintain it. So that's generally what I recommend. Here's one other issue that we have with sharpening steels. As you're bending your knife back into place, you're fatiguing the steel. So I'm sure that all of you have at some point taken a paper clip and bent it back and forth a few times, and you notice that it breaks after a while. And what happens is that as the steel is being bent, it gets work hardened, it gets fatigued, and it doesn't hold up as well. So a number of professional chefs that I know, myself included, have had the experience of sharpening their knife and having a really sharp knife and going to cut stuff, and it's great. And then after a while, it's not so great, and so you go to your steel and you touch up your knife, and you go back to work. And every time that you go back to the steel, you have to go back and back to it more and more often when you go back to your cutting. And the reason is that every time you use it, your edge becomes a little bit more fatigued and it doesn't hold up quite as well. And so when I tell people, well, it's better to use the stone, the reason is that you're not bending stuff back into place, you're removing steel, you're grinding steel away, you're exposing a fresh edge. And so instead of getting an edge that won't last you quite as long as it did the time before, you're going to have something where you can touch it up and go back to work and not have to mess around with it for a much longer period of time. So again, if you're thinking about using a honing steel on your Japanese knives, please consider the information that we provided for you in this video. Think it through. In general, we don't recommend it. There are some times with certain softer steel Japanese knives that are in that like 58 to 60 range that can be used with steels without causing horrible damage to them, but it's definitely not the best for them. I understand, having been a professional chef, that there are times on the line where you just have to do what you have to do and you need to get your edge back into place, and so no one's going to tell you not to take care of your knife on the line in the middle of service. But when you have the time, try and use a finishing stone or sharpen your knife on Japanese water stones, as it will give you the best edge that you're looking for with the best kind of edge retention and without causing damage to your knife. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Again, my name is John from Japanese Knife Imports, and if you have any questions, you can find us at JapaneseKnifeImports.com. Have a great day.